So we're going to do a fairly short video, talk about some frequently asked questions or issues customers might have or concerns they might have, and also we're going to talk about some updates to the shop, plans for the future, etc. So just go ahead and get on the subject of frequently asked questions that customers have. So one is the ramrod, and well, we'll just start with the straightness of the ramrod. You can see this ramrod has a bow, so sometimes customers are concerned about that, and really all you have to do is just bend it in the opposite direction. You can bend them more than you think, and you can work along the length, and you can straighten it out. So they don't have to be perfectly straight, but you can see it's better. I can bend it a little more if I want to. Sometimes if they have a little bit of bow, they kind of spring and stay in the stock a little bit better. So it's not any kind of a real concern. So that's better than it was. Maybe not perfect, but still better. I could hit this end a little more. Play with it and you can get it as straight as you want. Just bend it in the opposite direction. These are pretty good ramrods, so they shouldn't break. So you don't have to worry about, you can put quite a bit of force on them to straighten them out. And they don't, like I said, they don't have to be perfectly straight. So anyway, that's the scoop with the ramrods, the straightness of them. And oftentimes people are concerned that the ramrod doesn't fit in the stock. So it doesn't fit in the ramrod pipes or fit in the hole in the stock. And that very often is true. So the ramrods are, they vary in size somewhat. They're not perfectly sized, and what that means is the ramrod just needs to be finished to size such that it will fit the ramrod pipes and fit in the stock. That's just part of the building process of making a nice rifle. The best way to do that is just to scrape down the ramrod or sand the ramrod, and not try to drill out the hole in the stock or anything like that. I've had customers that have suggested that they did that or wanted to do that, and it's just a terrible idea. It's just, bad things are going to happen. So just, you can use a cabinet scraper and scrape it down, or you can use some sandpaper. You can wrap sandpaper around the rod. Well, maybe sort of like, see if I can show you with the piece of paper, but you could wrap it around like this, and then squeeze a piece of paper in the vise, and then go back and forth. That works. So there's a lot of different methods to, you can use a file to cut down the size, real fine rasp perhaps. And it's not, we're not talking about a lot, just a little bit. Some of them need virtually very little wood removal, but some of them need just a little bit more. So there is a slight variation in size, but the good news is they're very good rods. We've changed our supplier now, and we basically have 0 reject rate. So we're very happy with the rods. So again, don't try to drill out the stock, just decrease the size of the rod a little bit. The ramrod tips that are supplied with the kit are slightly smaller than the diameter of the rod. So that means you basically want to kind of decrease the diameter of the rod to match the tip, and it can kind of taper down to the tip. So the area that the rod goes in the stock in particular, it often tapers down a little bit. Very common to see this on original work. So that's how to deal with the ramrods. Okay, what's next on the list? Another question we often get is, if you can see here or not, but there's a hole from the lock inlet to the barrel channel. You can see it. Some are a little worse than others. It varies slightly. You can see that little hole. So people are concerned that this is a problem, and it's not a problem. It's how the gun is designed. Every stock has it. It's perfectly acceptable, and it's not any reason to be concerned at all. This is just clearance for the mainspring. Wood often gets thin there, and it's not a problem that there's a hole there. It's just part of part of the combination of barrel and lock and size of the mainspring and so forth. It doesn't weaken the stock any, no concern. In fact, most original lock inlets won't have any of this wood up in here. It's just all removed in a big hole. So this is far beyond what they did in the period. So don't worry about that. I had a lock that I was going to bring out here. We'll pause this for a minute. Let me go get a lock. Okay, concerning locks, one thing I wanted to mention is that it's not acceptable, or and under no circumstances should you trip the lock. It's windy out here. Trip the lock without the frizzen closed. The frizzen needs to be closed. So you wouldn't want to pull it back to full cock and then trip it, because then the frizzen doesn't absorb any of the energy of the motion of the cock, and it just comes to an abrupt stop on the shoulder, and that inertia can cause the top jaw screw to bend, and it's very hard on the lock in general. So always, if you want to trip the lock, which is fine, always do it with it striking the frizzen with the frizzen closed, and you know, that's the way to do it. You don't have to have a flint in the jaws. You can have a piece of wood as well. So you got options there. So yeah, that's a good thing to remember with locks. We've had a good number of questions regarding disassembly of the lock, or locks, and then how to, in particular, get the tumbler from the cock. And that is a press fit, so you have to drive it out with a punch. And we'll go inside here at the end of this video and I'll show you that process. So basically what it amounts to is you can't be too afraid. You just have to have it well supported on the back side, and then hit it a good sharp rap with a square punch that fits the size of the hole. And the punch can be made of brass, it can be made of mild steel, very easy to make, and you can just knock it out. So, and our tumbler shafts do have a small taper, a 2-degree taper, so once it breaks free, it pretty much comes out all at once. So, okay, what's next on the list here? Oh, touch hole liners. So all of our new barrels have touch hole liners installed. So by new barrels, I mean all of the barrels that we make in conjunction with Green Mountain. So they'll have the liners installed unless you've ordered a carbon steel liner. Then the liner won't be installed. So the stainless steel liners, you'll be able to look close and you'll be able to see that it has a little different color than the barrel steel, and there'll be a small hole in the center. So even though in the past we haven't installed the liners, you know, don't be confused if a touch hole liner isn't in your kit, or the barrel doesn't seem to be drilled and tapped for the liner. It's because it's already in the barrel. So just look for the hole. If there's a hole through the side of the barrel, 16th inch hole, a little bigger than 16th, then that means a touch hole liner is installed, which it will be on all Green Mountain barrels with a stainless steel touch hole liner. And as far as I'd like to talk about liners just for a moment. We do offer carbon steel liners as well as stainless steel touch hole liners. And the only advantage of the carbon steel liners is that they blend in with the color of the barrel steel when the barrel's finished. They last much less length of time due to erosion from the charge and hot gases being forced through the hole. So unless you're really concerned about the look of the stainless steel ring, or I guess I should say circle that you'll see on the side of the barrel, we recommend the stainless steel. So just a little tidbit about that. Okay, next on the list is 2 calibers for 1 gun. So yeah, we can do that, especially now that we're doing all the exterior barrel work now. So our process allows us to control dimensions of the barrels very closely. So they're pretty much interchangeable without any notice at all. They're very, very close tolerances. So if you would like a replacement barrel in a different caliber, we can do it. That's of course within the model. So, and that also only works if the stock has been designed for a particular style barrel. So, our stocks are slightly different from the Green Mountain Kibler barrels to the rice barrels. So within that group we can provide replacement models, but for older stocks that were made just for rice barrels, we can't provide replacement barrels or substitute barrels in different calibers. Okay, So another question is how, just in general, how easy it is to build a rifle or one of our kit rifles, and that's a very subjective question, and it's hard to answer. You know, a lot of it depends on somebody's background and skill, and I guess the way I usually try to explain it, if somebody is just patient and works careful and thinks about what they do, maybe watches the videos, reads the instructions, just about anybody can have success building a rifle with the kits that we offer. We've had people, you know, many people where they've never done anything like this before, and they've had real good success. And that's really sort of one of the hallmarks of our business, is we try to make it so it doesn't take somebody with a lot of experience or background or technical skills in order to have success and fun. So we say, yeah, you know, go for it. We've had people that can do it on their kitchen table, that have done it on their kitchen table, and you know, ended up with real nice finished products. So, and you don't need that many tools. One thing we're going to do is we're going to come up with a very basic tool list. We haven't done that, but we need to. That'll basically show just the bare minimum tools that are required to build one of our rifles. And we may even do a video on that as well. Okay, what's next on the list? Let's see here. Well, oh, okay. The next model of gun that we're going to be offering. So for a long time we've been saying that the next model is going to be some kind of a Fowler or fowling piece or fowling gun. That basically means the equivalent of today's shotgun. So a gun designed to shoot shot rather than one single round lead ball. So we've been giving that a lot more thought, and it might not be 100%, but we're thinking pretty strongly in favor of some kind of a high-end trade gun type gun, a gun that had originally been made in London, an English trade gun, not London, but somewhere in England, probably not London. And not the cheapest of the trade guns, but sort of a higher grade trade gun. One that sort of has a lot of details that we like is a Wilson trade gun that's pictured in the book of sorts for provincials. So this is a gun that I believe belongs to Colonial Williamsburg that I've seen before, and it's a really neat trade gun. So I'll show you a little bit about it, if I can find it. Here it is. Pretty awesome gun. Nice round face lock. So we'll probably be using our lock, but we'll make some parts, dumb them down a little bit. So we'll have a lock that's specifically for this gun, where the cock is a little simpler and the frizzen is a little simpler. Just some things changed to make it more appropriate for a trade gun. But I think the architecture is just beautiful on this. It's a very kind of sleek, dramatic, very nicely styled gun. Has a octagon to round barrel, so it's actually a 3-stage barrel. So it goes round, I'm making a mess here, it goes round from the muzzle to about the entry pipe, right about there. And then it steps up and goes around for maybe 3 or 4 inches of a bigger diameter. So it's the first stage, second stage, and the final stage is octagon. And it also has some blending of the flats where it transitions to full octagon. See if we can show any other details of it. Has a very neat serpent side plate. And you can kind of see how skinny the gun is in some ways. It has some dramatic architecture. An interesting note about the serpent side plate is that it, is out of favor on high-end guns, 100 years before, well, maybe close to 100 years, maybe at least 75 years before this rifle or this gun was built, 75 to 100 years. But then, on the lower grade guns and for particular customers, such as Indians, they liked the serpent, and that's why it kept being used. It's pretty neat. See if there's anything else. I was thinking of something else and it's escaped me now. So of course this gun would be most appropriate in walnut. English walnut would probably is going to be a difficult find, although we'll probably be able to locate some, but black walnut will be a great choice for this particular gun. We'll probably offer some finishing supplies to make it look as close as possible to English walnut. So anyway, yeah, this will be coming down the pike here in time, probably in the next 6 to 9 months. We'll have thin barrels, not heavy walled barrels. These guns were typically very light, and we want to make them like the originals. So we may change ideas, but that's a good chance a gun similar to that gun pictured is the direction we're going to go. Okay, what's next here? Lots of people ask about visiting the shop, and it's always kind of a tricky subject for us because our shop really isn't a retail store. It's a production environment, and we're often very busy trying to get things done, and we don't want to be rude to people, but we often try to steer people away from coming and getting their guns and picking up products, that sort of thing, because it just it's just hard to get work done when that's taking place. So we're kind of racking our brains of what we can do to kind of compromise or figure things out in that regard. And we're considering having an open house day or a customer appreciation day, visit the shop day. Maybe next June is what we're thinking. It may coincide sort of with the KRA weekend, because we're not too far from the location where the KRA show is held. So just stay tuned for information on that. We would probably show everything all working in the shop, and have a tent and food available, and maybe some entertainment, things like that. So stay tuned on that. We'd like to see lots of people here. So okay, is there anything else? Well, I have a note on finishing, and it's such a big subject. I probably won't talk much about it, but I'll just make a few comments about it since we have lots of questions. So when you finish a gun stock, there's two basic operations. The first is staining the wood, and then using some kind of a finish on top of it. So staining involves using like our iron nitrate, aquafortis is another name for that, aniline dyes, things of that nature. Now staining is most often done on lighter wood such as maple, like this stock here. This is a fairly plain piece of maple. So this is pretty much always stained. Occasionally you'll stain other woods such as walnut or cherry to adjust the color. Ash would typically always be stained as well. So the staining gives you the color, and then on top of that a finish goes that seals the wood, gives it its shine. So there's usually two finishes that we recommend, and that's one permanent sealer, very durable, dries fast, pretty easy to use, good looking finish. And the next finish, let me back up, even though it's called sealer, it's still appropriate for the whole entire finishing process. So it's just a thinner version of the product that they call finish. I like to use the thinner version, as do a lot of the people that I know that use it as well, a lot of good gunsmiths. The thinner version allows you to put on thinner coats and spread it around more. It just looks nicer in the end. And then the other product we use a lot is called tried and true oil varnish. It's a much more traditional finish, linseed oil based, has some rosin added to it, and I believe it's partially polymerized, so that's basically it's a little more prone to cure faster than just a standard straight up linseed oil. I wouldn't recommend hardware store linseed oil, not good to use. But tried and true oil is if you like the idea of linseed oil, tried and true varnish oil is the way to go. Put it on in very, very thin coats. If you can put it out in the sun to dry, it's a great thing to do, because in my experience, one day in the sun might be equal to 5 or 6 days inside, or more. the sun really allows it to cure fast. You know, without the sun, it may take 5 or 6 days for a very thin coat to dry well. But in the sun, half a day and it'll probably be dry. So the sun, and it's not just the heat, it's the UV rays that help in the curing of the finish. So again, to summarize, staining, finishing, 2 different steps. Keep putting on finish in very thin coats, multiple coats, until you get the sheen that you want. I like to seal the inlet to the first coat of finish, and then usually I'll put the gun together and then finish while the gun is together, so you don't build up finish in your inlets and parts won't fit, that sort of thing. So that's just a bit of a summary on finishing that might allow things to make a little more sense. So we'll go inside and show removing a tumbler from a lock. I do see one more item here I will mention, and that is neutralizing of the iron nitrate. We get a lot of questions about that. It's an interesting subject. There basically are 2 different camps, and when I say camps, I mean people that I respect that are good builders. Some feel strongly about neutralizing the iron nitrate or the aquafortis, and some don't bother. And I fall in the one that don't bother and don't really feel the need to. In my experience, as long as I don't get the iron nitrate in the inlets, keep it out of the inlets, and the product that we make, it's depleted of acid as much as it can be. And then if you heat it well, it drives off any further acid during the heating process. And keep it out of the inlets, and I've not had a problem. I've not seen appreciable darkening over time either. Now with other products that people make, I think they're a little more acidic. I think you can get darkening over time. So what I'm saying only applies to the product that we make and we sell. So I've not seen the need to, but some people prefer to neutralize, and you can use a baking soda and water solution. I've also seen or heard of people using, I believe, like a lye solution or maybe ammonia. I'm not sure. I don't know. I shouldn't even have mentioned that. But baking soda and water, I think, is the route to go. Mix up a pretty concentrated solution and just brush it on the stock and let it dry, and then clean off the baking soda residue. If I do happen to get iron nitrate in the barrel channel, I'll just take a little artist brush with some baking soda and water and neutralize it so it isn't prone to coming in direct contact with the barrel and causing a rust spot. So that's all I know to say about that, and let's go inside and we'll take the lock apart.